Testing, can't even speak. Testing 1, 2. All right. Make sure we are live. Okay. We are live. What's going on, guys? So I am on here today because I wanted to share an experience of a concert I went to last night. And it's something we're all going to eventually have to go through at some point, although the experience might be different. It is going to require us to reach in and find a different part of ourselves. So, hi guys, my name is Donnie Rouse, and you are listening to the podcast One Life. Pick yourself back up. All right, here we go. Just making sure everything's aligned. So, picking yourself back up. At some point or another in your life, you are not going to escape being unscathed, meaning you will eventually have to experience the darkness of the night. That darkness of night could be the death of a loved one, a physical injury that's going to cause you to rethink how to move forward in life and rehabilitate and really, really question your belief systems around life. No one can get by in life without experiencing that. But when you encounter that in your life, how are you going to react? How are you going to respond is the better question, not to react. What I want to tell you is one of the ways to pick yourself back up is to have a vision for your life. And while it's not going to be easy when you get into that spot, right? Because when you think about it, when you are in that darkness of the night, you feel alone. You feel like no one else could understand you. But that is when you have to remember the most that there's people around you who love you, people around you who believe in you, to lean into those people. And then most importantly, to have a bigger vision for your life. Have a reason why you must get through whatever it is you're getting through. That why can be doing it for a loved one, a child, or a purpose you want to serve in the world. Last night, I went to a show of one of my favorite artists. I hadn't seen him in a long time, but he's a local artist. And I was listening to some of his shows, and I had this expectation. I was like, oh, I cannot wait because I want to hear this one song, which is one of my favorite songs right now. I arrived at the venue, and he was on the stage, started to play. Something seemed a little bit off. He went on to talk about how this had been one of the hardest years of his life. He had recovered from cancer. There was some stuff going on with his parents that was causing a lot of stress in his life. And this had been there was a breakup. So all these things literally layering on him. On stage playing, he would start a song. And then all of a sudden, like after maybe playing a couple verses, would just stop and start talking again. And it was almost like he was cycling back around the same program. He went into saying how he didn't feel like he was enough, how he apologized to everyone else. He realized that everyone else gave their time to be here. And he just kept apologizing and really bringing himself down. And the sad part about it was that he couldn't see that every single person in the crowd was there to support him, was there because they loved him, was there because they love his music, the work he's putting into the world. He couldn't see that. So the night went on, pretty much followed that suit the rest of the evening. I think there was probably a total of 3 songs played the entire night. 2 songs were played twice, I think. I'm pretty sure they're at least twice. And while I bring this up, not because there's any judgment, and as he was on stage and as he was going through this, everyone's heart was literally torn wide open. Because he was just so vulnerable on the stage, telling what his experience has been. And you couldn't help to feel bad for him. And in the sense that you could understand, you could have empathy for it. Because at some point, we all will experience this. The things he was sharing up there about not feeling worthy. I mean, who hasn't felt unworthy before, right? Raise your hand. All these things he was sharing, he just happens to have a platform where he's on stage and he was just opening himself up. And what I found most peculiar about the entire situation is that he couldn't see the successes, the strides, the people who were supporting him. Just the fact that he had experience with cancer and was beating that, and it was on stage, hadn't been performing in a long time, but yet got the courage to step up there and just play there. He couldn't see it. So why do I bring this story up? Why do I tell you? The reason I tell you is because we all go there at some point in our life. And if you haven't, you will. Something is going to rock your world where you're not going to know which way's up, which way's down. And I'm telling you this story because I want to equip you with the tools so when it does happen, you know how to pick yourself back up. You need a strong enough why. You need a reason to be able to pull through, to give every last bit of yourself, trusting and believing that it's going to get better. I'll give you an example. My mother, years ago, had open heart surgery. At that time, I was preparing for my, I'm trying to think if I was doing my weightlifting competition, but I had a bunch of like prep work and everything to do. And on top of everything that I was doing, I was getting her pills ready and making sure that she was comfortable, that she had everything the pills at whatever time she needed to take them, cleaning and doing all this stuff. It was tough because I felt like there wasn't enough energy, there wasn't enough time in the day to get everything done, but somehow I got everything done. And somehow I had the energy to wake up every single morning, go to the gym, work out, and then come back and do everything I need to do for myself as well as for her. And the reason, without, in hindsight, well, of course, it was my mother. Like, why? What else would I do? Right? I love her. There was a why that was pulling me, that made me stretch, made me find and muster the energy where if I didn't have that why, I wouldn't have known where to pull it from. So you are going back to the story of the musician. When you think of self-worth, where does self-worth come from? Give you a hint. The answer is in the words self-worth. Only you can give yourself your self-worth. When you encounter those dark nights, it's so important to lean in and just be with the people who support you, the people who believe in you. Because we're social creatures. We're meant to be around other people. We're meant to share our troubles because our perspective is very limited. We see things as being finite when in fact they are nothing but that. They're nothing like that. And then the other thing is you have to have a compelling reason why. You have to have a reason as to why you want to pull out of this. Because the big enough why will conquer any how. Meaning if you have a reason, nothing is going to stand in your way. Where are you in your life? Where is that darkness of the night? Where is that emotional low that you're feeling? Maybe it's in your weight, right? Maybe you just be like, oh my God, I am never going to drop the weight that I want. Or maybe it's around your finances. You've been pushing, but you just haven't been seeing the results. As a result, if you beat yourself up, where is it for you? And who can you speak to give you a little bit of perspective on life? It's so important when you encounter these spots in your life to constantly keep moving forward. Giving the example of the musician, this was his first time on stage in quite a while. And so he was nervous about it and kept looking at the time, saying, okay, well, what time is it? What time is it? And literally being vocal to the crowd, like, oh gosh, well, we could end it here. And everyone's like, no, we want to hear you. we came to hear you sing. And there's no judgment there, right? I applaud the effort because we all have a circle of comfort that we live in. Sometimes it expands, other time it contracts, depending on where we are and what we're experiencing in our life. What's important is what we do when we come across that edge, when we're at that edge. Because when we bounce against that edge, we could choose to break through, or we could let it recoil us back. And all of a sudden now the game we play is much smaller. For this gentleman, that is exactly what it was. He hadn't been on stage for quite a while, and he was at the edge of his comfort zone. What he does next will define his future. Going back to the meaning, what is it that makes you wake up in the morning? What is it that drives you? In every single area of your life is going to have this. Sometimes there's one overarching theme where this one big thing literally lines up every other category, every other area of your life. Think about it as having a child. When you are a parent, I mean, I don't know, I don't have kids, but from the stories I've been told and what I've seen and experienced in my own life from my own parents, you will break through any wall, jump through any fire imaginable for your child. That reason is they are that reason. So with that, focusing on that why, all of a sudden now there's nothing you wouldn't do. I've heard stories of people who would work 3 jobs, literally almost 20 hours a day, because they had to put food on the table for the family. What is your reason? What is your big why? So on the One Life podcast, I started this because I want you to have a bigger vision for your life. I want you to feel excited. Will there be hardships? Of course. There's always going to be hardships. What gets you through those hardships is having that compelling reason why, that compelling vision. I'll go on tell you one more story. I remember thinking about or reading about suffering. And so, well, what is suffering? Suffering is when there's no reason for the pain, you suffer, right? When you feel like someone has done something to you and you're helpless, there's suffering. But when you have a reason as to why you're doing it, all of a sudden now the suffering transforms. The story what made me think about this, I was reading this in a personal development book, and then it was probably around the time of Easter. And, Jesus' crucifixion, and we're talking about that, and they said he suffered. I was like, well, it made me question. I'm like, well, he suffered. All right. Well, I don't know if I believe in that. And you're like, well, of course he did. I mean, he was nailed to a cross, and but his reason was so compelling. Like, I'm sure that he didn't look at it as suffering. It was an act of love. I don't believe that there was any suffering involved because there was a bigger purpose for it. That is what you need to find in your life, and only you can find it for yourself. So let's rewind, and where are you, right? Are you experiencing that darkness of night? Are you feeling lost? If you do, I applaud you, because it is in these spots that our perception sometimes shifts and we see life in a different way. It helps us see something that was blind to us before. Sometimes that makes the path easier. But when you are in that spot, how will you get out of it? Rather than asking questions and trying to evoke some answers, I just want you to think about it. Who are the people who believe and support you? Why do they support you? What is it about you that they are so fond of, that they love? List those people out on a piece of paper. Because when you are feeling alone, when you feel lost, when you feel like you can't go on, these are the friends you want to reach out to, because they are the ones who are going to keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, reminding you of who you really are. Not who you think you are, but who you really are. And then lastly, develop a compelling reason. Why must you get through this? For whom? What will it mean? These are the kind of questions that will give you a deeper sense of meaning, of why you must push through. I hope this podcast made you think just a little bit differently about the downsides of life, because we're all going to encounter them. But also, I hope that it helps you find the power and the courage to keep on going. Because life is a gift. Life is beautiful. It's meant to be enjoyed. The only way we can get there is by having a clear vision and by developing this thing on top of our shoulders, our head, having the right mindset. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. If there's someone who's going through a hard time and you think this might be beneficial to them, please consider sharing it with them. If you have a question, comment, or would like to share a story, you can do so by visiting my website at www.donnyrouse.com, DonnyRaus.com. That is all I've got for you guys today. Remember, you only get one life. Live it. God bless, and I will see you again soon.